Tonight's lesson is on graphs of proportional relationships involving fractions. So again, I'm going to want you to be able to explain what certain points are on a graph of a proportional relationship, just like we did a few lessons ago. However, this time there'll be fractions involved. Let's take a look at the first example. After taking a cooking class, you decide to try your new cooking skills by preparing a meal for your family. You have chosen a recipe that uses an organic mushroom mix as the main ingredient. Using the graph below, complete the table of values. Is this relationship proportional? How do you know from examining the graph? So pause the video, try it out, come on back. Okay, first of all, there's several ways to go about this problem, but I might say to myself, what would I multiply each weight by to get the corresponding cost? I could do that. 1/2 of what is 4? Well, 1/2 of 8 is 4. Half of 8 is 4. So here I would do 1 times 8, 1.5 times 8, and let's just check that 1.5 times 8 is 12. 1.5 times 8 is totally 12. So we know we can just take our weight in pounds times 8 and get our cost. So 1 times 8 is 8. So 1 pound must cost $8. Here, what times 8 is 16? Well, 2 times 8 is 16. So 2 pounds must be $16. Let's just verify that with our graph. Let's go over to 1 pound of mushroom, see where it crosses. 1 pound of mushroom is $8. Let's just double check for 2 pounds of mushrooms. Where does it cross? 2 pounds of mushrooms is $16. Is the relationship proportional? How do you know from examining the graph? So yes, the relationship is completely proportional. We take our weight times 8 and we get our cost. Just from examining the graph, we know that it's proportional because it's a straight line through the origin. And you know if you have a straight line that goes through the origin, you have a proportional graph. Now let's go ahead and try to find the unit rate for cost per pound. What is the cost for 1 pound? So take a minute, pause the video, try it out, come on back. All right, so unit rate we've actually already discussed, but I'll set it up. Cost per pound. I'm just going to go ahead and take a nice easy one. The cost is $8 for 1 pound. There you go. We have our unit rate. Our unit rate would be 8 because that means that it costs $8 for 1 pound. You could have also seen that from the graph. If you take a look, it's 1, 8. As soon as your first coordinate is 1, you know that second coordinate will give you your unit rate. And in this case, it means $8 per pound. Try to write an equation to model this data. So pause the video, try to write an equation, and come on back. I have to tell you, we've already written the equation. Because the first slide, I decided to go ahead and multiply each of my weight in pounds by 8 to get the corresponding cost. So that's my equation. Weight times 8 is cost. Let's call our weight W. And let's call our cost C. So again, we could write a let statement. Let W equal weight in pounds. Let C equal cost. And if we take W times 8, we'll get our cost. We've discussed we normally write the 8 first. 8 times W equals your cost. Again, 8 is your unit rate or your constant proportionality. So there's the equation. And we can just check that it actually works. Let's just put 1/2 in place of weight and hope that we come out with 4. So 8 times 1/2 should give us our cost. 8 is the same as 8 over 1, straight across the top, straight across the bottom. That's 8 over 2 is your cost. 8 divided by 2, $4 is your cost for a 1/2 pound of mushrooms. So that totally works. What ordered pair represents the unit rate and what does it mean? I might be able to tell sometimes I don't look at the slides ahead of time before I go through the lesson. So I've actually discussed what the unit rate was and what it meant and what ordered pair represents it. But go ahead, try it out, pause the video, come on back. Okay, so on an earlier slide, I said right here, as soon as you have 1, 8, 1 is your first coordinate. The second coordinate gives the unit rate. So the ordered pair that represents the unit rate is 1, 8. And what does it mean? It means that 1 pound of mushrooms costs $8. It's cost per pound. What does the ordered pair 216 mean in the context of this problem? So take a minute, pause the video, come on back, and check it out. 216 means 2 pounds of mushrooms costs $16. 2 times 8 is 16. That's all that it means. If you could spend $10 on mushrooms, how many pounds could you buy? So if you had $10 to spend, how many pounds would you be able to buy? Take a minute, pause the video, try it out. So we know 8 times our weight equals our cost. So 8 times our weight equals, in this case, our cost is 10. The operation between the 8 and the W is multiplication. How do I undo multiplication? I undo multiplication using division. So I can divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8, fancy form of 1, so I'm just left with my W here. 10 divided by 8. 8 goes into 10, 1 and 2 eighths left over. And that's the same as 1 1/4 pounds. So 1 1/4 pounds will cost $10. Now let's just go ahead and take a look here. At $10, this is 10, I'm sorry, this is 1, that's 1.5, so this is 1.25, which is the same as 1 1/4. So this coordinate of this point here where the purchase price is 10, the coordinate of that point there is 1.25, 10. So that's 1 1/4 pounds is $10. What will be the cost of 30 pounds of mushrooms? So my graph only goes up to 2.5 pounds. I want to know the cost for 30 pounds of mushrooms. This would be like if you owned a restaurant and you were making crazy amounts of this little, organic mushroom mix for the patrons at your store. So take a minute, pause the video, try it out. I'm going to go ahead and take my 8 times the weight equals the cost. So I'll just do 8 times 30 would be the cost. 8 times 3 is 24. So $240 if you wanted to buy 30 pounds of those mushrooms should be $240. Okay. I'm just looking to see that it makes sense. Already 2.5 pounds is already up to $20. So the reason I paused for a minute, I was like, okay, 30 pounds is going to be way the heck over here. So it's going to cost quite a bit. Okay, tonight's focus question. I need for you to describe the characteristics of a graph of a proportional relationship. How do you know the graph of, if you see a graph, how do you know you have a proportional relationship? And how can the unit rate be found by investigating the graph of a proportional relationship? And we discussed both of those tonight. Do a nice write-up, bring it to class tomorrow. Thanks, have a good night.